Hello, mixtresses and mixters. This is Mixtress Ray. You're watching Mixtress Video. Today I'm going to do kind of a quick review of the Keepers of the Light Oracle cards by Kyle Gray, artwork by Lily Moses. Oh my god, that is such a Freudian slip, because as soon as I said Carl instead of Kyle, I realized that Kyle Gray sort of reminds me of this youth leader I had back in middle school at church, at Baptist motherfucking church. And his name was Carl. And I had a huge crush on him. And I used to hug him every chance I could get. And I haven't thought about him in years until I just said Carl and realized that Kyle Gray himself reminds me of my old youth leader, Kyle. Carl, whatever. So this is a Hay House deck. It's pretty typical Hay House size box. I have a few of these now. And I got them because I have several goddess decks. And the inside of the box is just this gorgeous purple. And it's got gorgeous purple on the all around on the inside of the box. Beautiful box. And it's got this guidebook. This is not going to be a super thorough review because, spoiler alert, I'm thinking about rehoming this deck. So far, I think I've had it about a month, and I've been doing draws from it, at least 2 or 3 cards a week, and I just haven't connected. There's one card, 2 cards that I've connected to. I will show you those when we get there. But I got this deck because it's got both gods and goddesses in it. So I thought, hey, maybe I should invite in a little bit of the masculine. I've got all these goddess decks. Most of the tarot decks that I buy don't even have men in them. I very much do not work with the divine masculine, but I thought maybe I should try. I'll get this deck because it has about half and half. So the guidebook is, typical guidebook. You got a little bit of spreads, you got some introductions, you've got the cards and the messages and all that stuff. You can watch a more thorough review if you want to know more about that. But yes, and just so you know, I've seen reviews where, like, I think when this deck first came out, it was edged in gold, but mine wasn't edged, so I guess they just aren't doing that anymore. So I edged the masculine cards in like a dark teal and the feminine in like a beautiful fuchsia color. So I will just kind of take you through and kind of flip through the cards. They're in no particular order because, as I've said before, for me, like, one of the deal breakers when I'm thinking about buying an Oracle deck is numbered cards. I don't like numbered cards. Like, in my opinion, if you're going to have an Oracle deck, just put them in alphabetical order in your guidebook, if you have a guidebook. Don't number them, because for me, it adds a numerological factor that unless you have created an Oracle deck that has a structure, I don't see a reason for numbers on the cards. So, like, for a deck like this, especially with like gods and goddesses, like, putting a number on the cards is implying a hierarchy that shouldn't be there. So I don't know why I always have to go off on that, but that's just my thing. So these don't have that, thankfully. So all of them have the name of the god or goddess or ascended master or whatever you call it, and a key word or key phrase, and then a couple of sentences at the bottom. I like the art for the most part. I like the way they did the borders a lot. This is like my favorite kind of, if you're gonna have information on the cards, I would like the card to be borderless with a little chunk at the bottom. I mean, this chunk is a little thick, but I think we can get a little bit closer. There we go. So I wanted to do a flip through of this deck because sometimes whenever I do these videos, it forces me to be a little bit more mindful. And maybe this will finally help me decide. This one in particular, like I pulled this card for myself one day and I was just really, really not okay with it. I ended up putting it back and drawing a different card for the day. So I don't know if it's just kind of like a thing, like maybe I'm not really ready for the Divine Masculine, but maybe I will be. So maybe I should hold on to this deck. But every time I draw one of the dudes in this deck, I'm just like, ah, no, 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 which is my own trauma. And it's something that I want to work through, which is part of the reason why I got this deck, but it just hasn't connected. And I think part of it is the guidebook. Like, no offense to Kyle Gray, I watched a couple of videos of him sort of explaining this deck and doing some readings and stuff like that, and he seems like a sweet dude. He really does. He seems like he's got a great vibe to him, but I don't really like the writings in the guidebook. For example, I'll go ahead and tell you my critique. There's a big focus in this guidebook, and this might be a selling point for you. For me, it was the opposite. There's a really big emphasis in the guidebook about twin flames. Like, most of the cards, like when it's describing the person, it will be like El Moria is the twin flame of, and then so this is very much a twin flame deck. Like, you could almost even have renamed this deck the Twin Flame deck. Not every single pair in this deck is a pair, but like Mary Magdalene is touted as being the twin flame of Jesus, or is it Mother Mary and Jesus? I don't know. But for me, that whole twin flame thing doesn't really work. I'll actually read for you from the guidebook once we get to Radha. I'll read for you. And a lot of I've noticed, there's a little bit of what I would assume is unintentional sexism in this deck. There is a little bit of that in the guidebook. Luckily, none of that really shows through on the cards. So if you're not a person that reads the guidebook and you really like this artwork and you like the messages on the cards, if I do keep this deck, I'm probably going to have to start ignoring the guidebook, because none of the cards themselves say anything about the twin flame, which, and no, like, offense or disdain towards anyone that likes the twin flame concept. For me, it has some problematic factors about it. If you're into like hearing more about that, the concept of twin flames, and some like really great arguments for and against, Kelly from Kellyanne Maddox. Yes. There's lots of tarot Kellys out there. Kellyanne Maddox recently did a video where she talked about twin flames, and everything she said was super intelligent and made complete sense to me. So listen to her words, because they are beautiful and they are wise. Some of these cards are just so gorgeous, though. I mean, look at that. That is a Divine Masculine image that doesn't bother me at all. His eyes are so kind. Like, yes, all of that. But I read the guidebook and it doesn't bring me closer to the cards. Usually, I'm very much a guidebook person, as I've said many times before. Usually with a guidebook, it activates my relationship with the cards. And with this guidebook, it doesn't. So I'm going to have to create my own relationship with these cards, and I just haven't been able to do it yet. And I don't know if it's just because we're never going to work well together, me and this deck, or if it's just that I haven't tried hard enough yet. So I'm not quite ready to let it go, but I'm feeling like this might need to have a new home. This is one of the only 2 cards, oddly, because Bridget is in like every single goddess deck I have ever bought. So I thought, well, I don't need her again. But this particular image really speaks to me. And I think the guidebook was even great with this particular one. Okay, here's the one. I want to give you an example of some of the sort of soft sexism that is in this particular deck. Let me find Radha Soul Flame. The Hindu goddess Radha is the divine feminine counterpart and twin flame of Krishna. Okay, so her very first sentence is just about her connection to a man. She is considered to represent Shakti, the divine feminine and creative spirit of the universal life force. That's great. I wish that was on the card. I wish her keyword, instead of being soul flame, was Shakti. Or Shakti, the divine feminine, or something like that. That would be great. Without the female, the male cannot be created, and for this reason, Shakti is a powerful force that is honored and cherished. Radha is completely devoted to her partner and illustrates the age-old adage, behind every powerful man is a powerful woman. So this is the problem that I am constantly reminded of when I look at this deck, and any time the guidebook mentions a twin flame, I am reminded of this, the description of Radha, which is, and I looked through whenever I got her card of the day, and I first was like, oh my god, this is why I'm not connecting to this deck, because of this. I flipped back through and looked at a lot of the women in the deck compared to the men, and a good 8 times out of 10, the description of a goddess or ascended master that is female in this deck, in the very first sentence or 2, it will be describing her connection to a man. And that does happen with some of the men in this deck as well, describing their connection with the female counterpoint. But more often, the women in this deck, in the guidebook, their descriptions are based on their devotion to the men. So that bothers me, and that's the sort of casual sexism that you see in daily life, that a lot of men don't realize that they're doing, and you have to be their teacher and point it out to them, why did you not think of women in this particular situation? A lot of times they're like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, I didn't, so I'm not trying to say that Kyle Gray is trying to be sexist, but there is some casual sexism in this deck, and I very much bristle at having the quote, behind every powerful man is he changed it. He put powerful woman, but usually that's behind every powerful man is a woman. Just holding them up and supporting them. That's our entire pop culture is based around female characters existing simply to define the male characters around them. Everything in our world reinforces that awful mentality. And to see it reflected in an oracle deck is upsetting. I don't like it. And I don't know yet if I'm going to be able to get past it. If I can truly work with just the images and the cards themselves and throw away the guidebook and throw away any memories that I have of the guidebook, I might be okay. But because this image is absolutely gorgeous, it is profound. I could even see myself, now that I'm looking at it, maybe even cutting off the bottom of these cards. No, I don't know. I think that would look stupid though. So anyway, that is the big problem that I have with this deck that I had to put in a review, Because if you're thinking about getting this deck and that's the kind of thing that's going to be a deal breaker for you, I want you to know. And this could be fixed easily. You know, they could decide, Kyle Gray could decide, he could hear reviews like this, I'm sure I'm not the first person to notice, and decide that maybe he should change a few of the keywords on the cards. Maybe he could just redo the guidebook. Because as far as whenever I get a goddess deck like this, let's just stop here because this is my favorite card in the deck. In fact, I bought this deck because of this image. And if I get rid of this deck, unfortunately, whoever I give it to is going to have to live without this particular card because I'm keeping it. Even if I don't keep any of the rest of this deck, I'm keeping this card. Anyway, I don't even know what I was just saying. I don't even know what I was just saying because I was so distracted by how beautiful this card is. This card is absolutely amazing. Anyway, something about every time I get a goddess deck. Oh, the guidebook is important to me in goddess decks because I like to read about the mythology of the particular goddess. And this guidebook, just, you know, aside from its other issues, the actual, like, about section is very small. There's more from the extended message, more like the intuitive, like, oracle aspect of the description of each card in the guidebook than there is of the actual history. And I, just being a mythology nerd, prefer a little bit more history. So my review of this guidebook is that I don't like it. Obviously, we got there. You get it by now. But yeah. So there you go. I also, you know, it just needs to be said, it's in the same vein of, like, I'm going to just flip through really quick and find an image that I do enjoy looking at. I actually do enjoy this depiction, even though Mary is in a lot of my goddess decks. I really enjoyed this depiction because she looks Latina, and her eyes are just so, aren't they so inviting? She almost looks like J-Lo. Anyway, again, lost what I was saying. It is very hot. I don't know if you guys, I record in, it's essentially a closet. It's an oversized closet. It's big enough for my desk. And, so I have shelves in my desk and my computer in here and everything. Cause it's not like walk-in closet size, but it's a decent sized closet and it has a window and everything. I record in here and there's no air in this room. And I always close the door, of course, for, you know, so better sound for you guys. But that means that I'm sweating profusely because it's like 90 degrees outside. So I keep forgetting, like, what I'm fucking talking about because it's so hot. Anyway, so this deck is pretty cheap. I think I got it for less than $15. The production quality is gorgeous. If you have any other Hay House decks, then you know. The cardstock is wonderful. The box is sturdy and beautiful. Everything is fine about this deck, except the guidebook. I just feel like I'm not getting a lot of magic from it. I'm not getting, I'm just not getting that feeling that it's coming from the type of place. I wouldn't say it's coming from a bad place, but I think it's not coming from a place that personally connects for me. I guess I could just keep flipping again while I'm babbling. This is like one of the only production problems. There's just like little like discoloration right there. And I noticed shit like that, but it doesn't really bother me. Oh, the other thing I was going to say, okay, fuck, I finally got back to it, is this is in the same vein of why the sexist thing, kind of, the like tiny bit of sexism that we've got going in this deck. There's also, like, there is some diversity in age and color, as you can see, but it's not a lot of diversity. It really isn't. First of all. Second of all, heteronormativity all over the place. Like, especially you don't get that from looking directly at the cards, again, because you just see either, a feminine energy or a masculine energy. But in the guidebook, since it mentions twin flames a lot, the only twin flames are male and female. Like Odin and Freya, I think, are paired up. Cernunnos and somebody else, Bridget maybe, are paired up. There's no Osiris in here, but I think Isis is paired up with Horus. Like, all this twin flame shit, like, either you're into it or you're not. But I would just say, if you are, like me, drawn to this imagery, but not enjoying, like, the descriptions from the guidebook that I'm presenting here, get the deck. It's reasonably priced. Get it and just immediately throw the guidebook away. Just don't even look at it. Don't be soured like I am. Or if you are anyway. That's just me. I wish there were more. I mean, this is the only Native American that we see in the whole deck. And it was the last card in the deck because they were, I don't know if you can see it. I guess you really can't. But anyway, just because of being in alphabetical order, this was the last card in the deck. And because of that being banging around at the bottom of the box, it does have a few little issues on the edges of the card, but you can barely tell. So that's not really an issue. But it's just sad that, like, the only Native American person in the entire deck had, damage on the card. So anyway, that is, I don't want to, put any bad vibes towards Kyle Gray. I don't know this person. He's probably a nice guy, but like all other straight, white, cis dudes in our culture, he may not even be straight. I don't know. I would assume so because of all the heteronormativity in the guidebook of this deck. We have to, unfortunately, any of us that aren't straight, white, cis, able-bodied dudes in our culture, any of us that are even one step away from that, we have to call this shit out. It needs to be called out. It does. Call out culture can go a little far sometimes, as we all know. It's not about, like, completely demonizing someone and canceling them altogether, unless they've done something to truly warrant that. It's more about just, like, saying, hey, you may not realize this, but there's some sexism in your guidebook. There's a lot of heteronormativity, and that can be, a deck that is very well made and has some really beautiful imagery. It can turn people off. It can keep people away from your beautiful deck that you made because of some of the language in your guidebook. So that's a thing to pay attention to. I think that's very important. And the twin flame focus thing, I mean, obviously it just comes up again and again in the guidebook. So it's obviously something that is important for this particular deck. So, but you don't get that from the description on the box or anything like that. You don't know it's coming. So if you are into the whole twin flame thing, get this deck for sure. It is mentioned a lot in the guidebook. I could even, like, go through and, like, show you all the twin flames. But that would make this video extremely long. And I don't love this deck enough to devote that kind of time to it. So, I didn't really even show you the back of the cards, did I? Here's the back of the cards. So that's it. I would say, I mean, I feel like I just spent so much time complaining about this deck. But that's just because it personally doesn't work for me. If it works for you, great. I just hope that I provided enough of a review about why I'm having an issue with it, for you to be able to judge how you feel about it, whether or not those things would be issues for you, or maybe they'd be selling points for you, like I said before. Hopefully that's enough of an idea of just kind of looking deeper into the Keepers of the Light Oracle. So that's it for today, and I will be back again at some other day. Wow. The words. See, I wouldn't be a great person to write a guidebook. I tried to actually created my own sort of plant oracle deck, and I was trying to make myself like just a little guide sheet, you know, like with a sentence or two from just for each card. And I just was having the hardest time with it. It was very difficult. So props to anyone that does write a guidebook, because that shit is hard, because you have to be specific enough to really, you know, to really activate someone's intuition and relate to the image on the card. But you also have to be vague enough that a person can really relate that to their own lives. You don't want to be so specific that they can't get in. So it's a difficult process. So I definitely understand the pain of creating. I mean, you can't create a guidebook that works for everybody. You can't create a tarot deck or an oracle deck that works for everybody. That's why there's so many. And every time I do like a review on one of these things, I gotta say, you know, I understand completely how, I mean, not even completely, because I've never created my own, like, and tried to produce my own tarot oracle deck, but I understand how many struggles a person has to go through to create the art, create the structure, create the guidebook, find a great publisher, and all that stuff. Like there's a lot that goes into this process. So I don't want to criticize too harshly, because hey, you know, anyone that created this shit, they did it. I haven't done that. So good on you, Kyle Gray and Lily Moses. You did create a beautiful deck that I have a few issues with, but yes, let's go ahead and end this video because I'm sweating profusely. I hope you guys are doing great wherever you are. I hope you have air conditioning if you're in a part of the world that is extremely hot right now. It is July 2019 when I tape this. I don't even know. I might not even put it up to like October or something, but hey, maybe by then it'll be cooling off and the days will be getting shorter again and we'll all be happier, right? Anyway, I hope you guys have a great week and I will see you in the next one. Bye.